So just some fraction review. We'll start with adding and subtracting, and we know we have to have common denominators, which means the bottom of this fraction has to have the same number across the board in order to be able to add or subtract. Now, in order to do this, we need the prime factorizations of each of these three numbers. So the 4 goes to a 2 and a 2, 6, 2 and a 3, 8, 2, 2, and 2. There are teachers that will say, okay, we'll use the biggest number and see if all those numbers go into that. And 6 doesn't, so that clearly won't work. Then if that doesn't work, multiply that biggest number by 2, giving me 16. 6 doesn't go into that. Multiply that biggest number by 3, 24, and hey, all the numbers go into that, so that's your LCD. That's fine. I think, though, that it's not going to help when we start getting into more complicated things that don't just deal with numbers. And we will move on to that much later in the year. So the way I'm going to go about this is I'm going to find the smallest number such that all the factors go into it. And I'll use a little bit of the same principle, but not completely the same idea as multiplying that biggest number by 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I will look at the biggest number and say, well, that has 3 2's in it. Now, each of the 2 other numbers have to go into this number that I'm creating as my LCD. Now, this 2 and this 3, the 2 definitely goes in here, but the 3 doesn't, so I have to add a 3 to this. And then in this number here, the 4, the 2 2's have to go into this number I've created, and they do because I have 2 2's right here. So the product of these 4 numbers has to be my LCD, or 24. It's the same, just a different way of going about it. Now, the next thing I'll do is I'll list that LCD as many times as there are terms. So I have 3 terms, so 3 denominators. Then I have to figure out how I get from the original denominator to the new denominator by multiplication. And in this case, I'm doing that by multiplying by 6. Now, I can't just multiply this by 6 and leave it as is. I can't change the value of 3/4, so I have to multiply by 6 over 6, which is equivalent to 1. And we know multiplying by 1 doesn't change the value of a number. So this gives me an 18. Likewise here, 6 to 24 gets me a 4, so I multiply the top and the bottom by 4, giving me a 20. And then lastly, an 8 to the 24 is a 3. Multiply top and bottom by 3 gets me a 39. And then we know when we're adding fractions, denominator stays the same. Numerators get added up. That's 38. Minus 39 is negative 1/24. Next, we're going to deal with some mixed numbers, and I prefer not to do addition and subtraction with mixed numbers. I would rather just change everything into an improper fraction. And we remember that to get the improper fraction, we multiply the denominator by the integer and then add the numerator. So this is 24 plus 5 is 29 over 8, and in this case I have 24 and 7 is 31. That's over 12. Get the LCD again. This is 2, 2, and 2. This is 2, 2, and 3. Notice I'll create my LCD over here, find the biggest number, which is a 2, 2, and a 3. That's my 12. 3 2's need to go into that. They don't. So I multiply by another 2 and get 24. So 24 is my LCD. Again, I will multiply the denominator and numerator by a number that gets me from 8 to 24 in terms of multiplication. That's a 3 in this case. So I multiply the numerator by a 3. 60 and 27 is 87, but that's negative. And then to get from 12 to 24, that's a 2. So I've got a 62. We add these up. We end up with 25 negative type over 24. We're going to leave this as an improper fraction and not change it to a mixed number. So here's another one. We'll just practice this. 3, 5. Those are both prime numbers. And this is a 2, a 3, and a 5. So I'm going to take that 2, 3, and 5. My 5 goes into that, so I'm okay there. My 3 goes into that, which means that 30 must be my LCD. And I will write 30 down 3 times. To get from 3 to 30, I multiply by 10, both to the numerator and denominator, giving me a negative 40. To get from 5 to 30, I multiply by 6. So that's a 12. To get from 30 to 30, just multiplying by 1. And so now I'm going to add up once again, and I get 40 of the negative type plus 12 minus 13 gives me a negative 41 over 30. Done. So for multiplying, there's a couple different ways to think about this. You can multiply the numerators by the numerators and the denominators by the denominators. You can, and then reduce after you're done. We always want things in lowest terms. Or you can take and reduce off the bat. But when reducing, you may only reduce vertically or diagonally, never horizontally. So in order to reduce, you're looking to reduce like factors. So in terms of like factors, I know a 6 is a 2 and a 3, and a 14 is a 2 and a 7. So these have like factors of 2. I can reduce those like factors, and if nothing else has like factors, both vertically and diagonally, I'm done. So I multiply what's left in my numerator, which is 3 and 9 or 27, by 5 and 7, which is 35, and that should be completely reduced. Likewise, you can do this for any number of terms, and you can go vertically or diagonally and skip over 2 diagonals if you want. Again, I'm going to take and look at the prime factoring. This goes to a 2, a 2, and a 3. This goes to a 2, a 2, a 2, and a 2. And then I'm going to start looking to reduce any like factors. Well, this 3 goes with this 3. And it looks like I'm pretty much done. So what I've got left is I've got 35 times 3, which is 105, I believe. And then I've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or what is that, 2 to the 6th. So 2 to the 4th is 16, 5th, 32, 64. And that's done. Last bit of review, we'll do some dividing of fractions, and dividing a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the term following the division sign. So this is the same as 5/14 multiplied by 2 over 1. We just follow the rules for multiplication now. 14 is a 2 and a 7. Thus, 2's are the like factors, and I'm left with 5 on top, 7 on bottom, and I'm done. Now in this case we have 3 terms. Only the term following the division sign gets multiplied by the reciprocal. So I have now 8/5 multiplied by 7/3 multiplied by 3 over 28. Again, common factors, I'm going to say this has a 4 and a 2, and this has a 4 and a 7. And notice the 7's reduced completely, leaving a 1 up here. The 4 is reduced completely, leaving a 1 down here. 3 is reduced completely. And notice in the numerator I have a 2 left. In the denominator I only have a 5 left. And we're done.